The giant space station called Nexus Prime was full of noise and bright lights. Nari had never seen so many different aliens in one place before. Some had 6 arms covered in green scales. Others had wings that sparkled like diamonds in the artificial sunlight. A few creatures were so tall they had to bend down to walk through the doors. Nari held her father's hand very tight. She was only 8 years old, and everything around her seemed huge and scary. The seat they sat in was made for much bigger people so her feet could not touch the floor. She swung them back and forth nervously while watching all the strange beings walk past them. Her father, Tae-ho, was a simple man who fixed machines for a living. He had never been to space before this trip. When the lottery numbers were called on their home planet, he could not believe his luck. 2 free tickets to the most famous fighting tournament in the whole galaxy. It seemed like a dream come true, now sitting in the lower section of the massive arena. Tae-ho was starting to worry. Maybe this was not a good place for a small child. The aliens around them were talking in languages that sounded like grinding metal or rushing water. Some of them had teeth as long as his fingers. Others had claws that could probably cut through steel. The arena itself was amazing to look at. It was so big that clouds were forming near the ceiling. The fighting area in the center looked like a small desert with red sand. The walls were made of some kind of clear material that seemed stronger than any glass Tae-ho had ever seen. Thousands and thousands of seats went up in circles around the fighting area. Each level was packed with creatures from different worlds. Nari pointed at a group of blue-skinned aliens who were sitting nearby. They had 4 eyes each, and their skin seemed to glow softly in the dim light. One of them noticed her staring and made a sound that might have been laughter. Its mouth had too many teeth to count. "Look, Daddy, that one. Has fur like a cat?" Nari whispered. She was pointing at a creature that looked like a giant orange tiger walking on 2 legs. It was wearing some kind of uniform and carried what looked like weapons. The tiger creature turned its huge head toward them, and its yellow eyes seemed to study the little human girl. Tae-ho pulled his daughter closer to him. He was starting to understand why the tickets had been so cheap. Most species brought their strongest members to events like this. Humans were still new to space travel compared to other races. They were often seen as weak and not very important. The crowd around them was getting excited. Something was about to happen in the arena. A loud voice began speaking in the common galactic language. The translation device that Tae-ho wore in his ear turned the alien words into human speech. Ladies and gentlemen and honored beings from all corners of our great galaxy. Welcome to the annual combat festival. Today, we will witness displays of strength, speed, and skill from the finest warriors in known space. The arena lights dimmed and bright spotlights began moving across the crowd. Every few seconds, a light would stop on someone in the audience. When this happened, the person would stand up and wave at the cheering crowd. Most of the chosen ones were huge, powerful-looking beings with natural weapons or armor. Nari watched in wonder as a spotlight stopped on a creature that looked like it was made of living rock. It stood up and flexed, muscles that were bigger than her whole body. The crowd roared with approval. Another light found an alien that seemed to be made of pure energy. Its body flickered and danced like a flame. Then something unexpected happened. One of the bright lights stopped moving. It was shining directly on Nari. The little girl looked around confused, not understanding what was happening. The crowd near them started pointing and talking in excited voices. A tall, blue-skinned official with 6 arms was walking down the steps toward their section. His skin was covered in patterns that seemed to move and change color as he got closer. He wore a uniform that marked him as someone important in the arena organization. The official stopped in front of Tae-ho and Nari. His translator device made clicking sounds before the words came out. "The child has been selected for the youth exhibition match. This is a great honor for your species." Tae-ho felt his blood turn cold. He had heard about these exhibition matches from other human colonies. Young members of different species were put into the arena to show off their natural abilities. It was supposed to be safe, but accidents sometimes happened when you mix children from worlds with different gravity, and different evolution things could go wrong very quickly. Nari looked up at her father with wide eyes. She did not understand what was happening, but she could see the fear on his face. "Daddy, what does he mean? What is an exhibition match?" The blue official answered before Tae-ho could speak. "Young beings from various species demonstrate their natural talents in a controlled environment. It is perfectly safe and provides valuable data about developing life forms your daughter will represent humanity in this educational display." Other humans in their section were starting to whisper among themselves. Everyone knew the stories about these matches. Most alien children had natural advantages like armor, thick skin, enhanced strength or built in weapons. Human children had none of these things. They were soft and slow compared to most galactic species. Tae-ho tried to speak up. "Excuse me, sir, but my daughter is very young. Maybe there has been a mistake. She is not trained for any kind of fighting." The official made a sound that might have been laughter. "All participants are between the ages of 6 and 10 in their species development. No training is required. This is about natural ability, not learned skills. Your child will do fine." 2. More officials had arrived, both carrying devices that looked like they could restrain someone if needed. Tae-ho realized he did not have a choice in this matter. When the galactic authorities wanted something, they usually got it. Humans did not have enough political power to say no to requests like this. Nari was escorted away from her father toward the preparation areas. Her small hand slipped out of his as the officials guided her toward a door marked in alien symbols. Tae-ho tried to follow but was stopped by security guards who were twice his size. The other humans in their section tried to offer comfort, but their words felt empty. Everyone knew what these exhibitions were really about. They were designed to show how superior the established galactic species were compared to newcomers like humanity. The strong preyed on the weak and called it education. As Nari disappeared through the door, Tae-ho sat back down in his seat. His hands were shaking and his heart was beating too fast. He could only watch the preparation screens and pray that his little girl would come back to him safely. The crowd around him was getting more excited as the exhibition was about to begin, but all he felt was a growing sense of dread. Commander Vexka stood in the shadows beneath the arena watching the preparation screens with cold, calculating eyes. He was a legend among the hegemony military forces, standing 9 feet tall with natural armor plates covering his dark purple skin. He had earned his reputation through 2 decades of brutal warfare. His claws could slice through metal like paper, and his strength was enough to crush bone with a single grip. The commander had killed over 200 enemies in real combat situations. Most of them had begged for mercy before the end. He took pride in being efficient and ruthless on the battlefield. Today he was supposed to supervise the youth exhibition match, making sure the young participants did not seriously hurt each other. It was considered an easy assignment for a warrior of his status, but Vexka had different plans brewing in his mind. He watched the preparation screen showing the young beings who would enter the arena. A massive reptilian child with scales, harder than steel, was practicing combat moves in one corner. His natural armor gleamed under the bright lights, and every movement showed deadly grace that came from millions of years of predator evolution. In another area, a crystalline being was demonstrating how her body could produce energy blasts. The young creature glowed like a living star, and the walls around her showed scorch marks from her practice shots. Her species was known for their ability to channel raw power through their mineral-based bodies. A third participant looked like a smaller version of a giant insect. His exoskeleton was already developing the razor-sharp edges that would make him nearly invincible as an adult. 6 arms moved with perfect coordination as he tested his natural weapons against practice targets. Then Vexka saw the human child. Nari sat quietly in a corner looking lost and terrified. She was so small compared to the other young beings that she seemed like a different species entirely. Her soft pink skin had no armor or protection. Her tiny hands had no claws or natural weapons. She looked exactly like what she was, a weak, primitive creature from a backwards world. The sight of her filled Vexka with disgust and anger. He had fought against human colonies during the border wars 3 years ago. The humans had tried to defend their settlements with crude weapons and desperate tactics. They died easily, screaming for help that never came. Their weakness had offended him then, and it offended him now. How dare these pathetic creatures think they belonged in the same arena as the superior species of the galaxy? How dare they send their weak offspring to compete with the children of true warriors? It was an insult to everything. The combat festival represented Vexka began walking toward the arena entrance. His massive form cast long shadows as he moved. Security guards and officials stepped aside when they saw him coming. Everyone knew his reputation, and no one wanted to be in his path when he had that particular look in his predator eyes. The crowd in the arena was getting restless, waiting for the exhibition to begin. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds had come to see demonstrations of natural superiority. The betting pools were already favoring the reptilian child and the crystalline being. Most spectators had never even heard of humans before today. As Vexka entered the arena floor, the crowd fell silent. Something in his movement suggested that this would not be a normal exhibition match. His claws were already extending from their sheaths, and his armor plates were shifting into combat position. The other supervising adults moved back instinctively, sensing danger. The young participants began entering the arena one by one. The reptilian child moved with confidence, his scales catching the arena lights like polished metal, the crystalline being floated slightly above the ground, her body pulsing with contained energy. The insect creature skittered across the sand with mechanical precision. Nari was the last to enter. She looked even smaller in the vast arena space, surrounded by beings that could easily kill her without thinking twice. The human child turned in circles looking for her father in the crowd, but the bright lights made it impossible to see beyond the arena walls. Vexka watched her with the patience of a born hunter. The official announcer began explaining the rules of the exhibition. Each young participant would demonstrate their species' natural abilities in a safe, controlled environment. Adult supervisors would ensure no serious injuries occurred. It was supposed to be educational entertainment, showing the diversity of galactic life. But Vexka was no longer listening to rules or safety protocols. His warrior instincts had taken control, and they were telling him to eliminate the weak creature that dared to share space with real predators. He had spent his entire adult life killing humans and their allies. Now he had a chance to do it again in front of the entire galaxy. The other young beings seemed to sense his intentions. They moved away from the center of the arena, leaving Nari alone and exposed. The reptilian child, despite his young age, recognized a true predator when he saw one. The crystalline being dimmed, her glow instinctively trying not to attract attention. Nari stood frozen in the center of the arena. Vexka began walking toward her, his claws making scratching sounds against his armor plates. Each step was deliberate and threatening. The crowd started to murmur uneasily, realizing that something was wrong. This was not how exhibition matches were supposed to go. The little human girl looked up at the approaching warrior. Her eyes went wide with terror as she finally understood what was about to happen. She opened her mouth and called out in a voice that carried across the entire arena, "Daddy, help me." The words echoed through the vast space in the common galactic language, thanks to the translation systems. Every being in the audience could understand the desperate plea of a child calling for her parent. It was a sound that transcended species barriers because most intelligent life forms had some form of family bonds, but Tejo was too far away, locked in the spectator sections behind barriers designed to keep crowds safe from arena violence. He could only watch helplessly as his daughter faced death alone. Vexka raised his claws high above Neyri's small head, the deadly. Weapons gleamed in the arena lights, sharp enough to cut through almost any material. The commander had decided to make this kill quick and brutal, showing the entire galaxy. What happened to inferior species who dared to compete with their betters? Crowd held its breath, waiting for the strike that would end an innocent life. Some beings closed their eyes, unable to watch. Others leaned forward with morbid fascination. Even the most bloodthirsty species in the audience felt uncomfortable watching. A trained warrior prepared to murder a helpless child, Nari closed her eyes and whispered words in her human language that the translators could not process. She was probably praying to whatever gods her people believed in, hoping for a miracle that seemed impossible. Vexka smiled with cold satisfaction as he prepared to bring his claws down. In a few seconds, the galaxy would understand that humans had no place among the true civilizations of space. Their weakness would be exposed for all to see, and their pathetic attempts at integration would end in blood and shame. The commander began his killing strike, confident that nothing could stop him now. The collision between Tejo and Vexka would be studied by military academies across the galaxy for the next 100 years. What happened in those 3 seconds challenged everything. The galactic community thought they knew about human capabilities. First, second Tejo's shoulder connected with Vexka midsection like a battering ram powered by 40,000 years of human evolution. The impact sent shockwaves through both bodies, but the alien warrior bore the worst of it. His natural armor plates, designed to deflect energy weapons and metal blades, began cracking under the sheer force of human momentum and desperation. The crowd gasped in disbelief as the supposedly superior being staggered backward under the assault of a primitive human. The sound of breaking armor echoed through the arena like thunder. Most beings had never seen a galactic warrior show any sign of weakness before. Vexka tried to bring his claws down on the human, but Tejo was moving too fast and too close for the weapons to be effective. The alien had trained for combat against opponents who fought at distance or used predictable attack patterns. Nobody had prepared him for an enemy who turned his own body into a weapon. Tejo wrapped his arms around the alien warrior's waist, lifting him slightly off the ground. The human had worked with heavy machinery his entire adult life. His hands and arms had the kind of strength that came from years of manual labor combined with the desperate power that only came from protecting family. Second Tejo hands found Vexka's throat with the precision of a guided missile. His fingers wrapped around the alien windpipe with crushing force. The same hands that had gently braided his daughter's hair that morning were now applying enough pressure to collapse reinforced cartilage. The alien warrior's claws raked across Tejo's back, tearing through his work shirt and leaving deep bloody furrows in his skin. But the human did not even seem to notice the pain. His entire nervous system had been flooded with adrenaline and endorphins, turning him into something that could ignore injuries that would have stopped most beings. Vexka's eyes went wide with shock and the beginning of something he had never experienced before in his long military career. Fear was creeping into his consciousness as he realized this was not going according to plan. The human was supposed to be easy prey, not a relentless predator. The crowd was on its feet now, shouting in dozens of different languages as they watched the impossible unfold before them. A simple mechanic from a primitive world was overwhelming one of the most feared warriors in known space, using nothing but determination and raw strength. Second. This was when everything changed forever. Teho's grip tightened beyond what should have been physically possible for his species. The human body was capable of incredible feats when pushed to its absolute limits. Mothers could lift vehicles, oft-trapped children. Fathers could break through walls to reach their families. The same biochemical processes that allowed such miracles were now focused on one alien throat. The sound that came from Vexka windpipe was like breaking stone mixed with crushing metal. His advanced respiratory system, designed to function in a dozen different atmospheric conditions, was being compressed beyond its structural limits. The warrior who had never known defeat was being strangled by bare human hands. Vexka began clawing frantically at Teho's arms, trying to break the death grip around his throat. But the human seemed to feel no pain at all. His face showed the same calm expression he wore when concentrating on a difficult repair job. The only difference was the absolute determination in his eyes. The alien tried to use his superior strength to throw the human off, but Teho had wrapped his legs around Vexka's waist, creating a hold that could not be broken. The human had become like a python squeezing, tighter with every breath his opponent tried to take. Other beings in the arena began backing away as they realized what they were witnessing. This was not a fight, it was an execution. The human had not come to compete or prove himself. He had come to eliminate a threat to his child, and nothing would stop him from completing that task. Vexka's vision started to blur as oxygen stopped reaching his brain. His claws scratched weakly at the human arms, leaving bloody trails, but doing no real damage. The warrior who had killed hundreds of enemies was being defeated by a species he had considered beneath notice. The arena fell completely silent, except for the sound of the alien struggling for breath that would not come. 40,000 beings watched in stunned amazement as their understanding of the galactic power structure crumbled before their eyes. Then it was over. Vexka's body went completely limp and crashed to the arena floor. The 9-foot-tall galactic champion, veteran of countless battles and killer of hundreds, lay motionless at the feet of a human mechanic. The impact of his fall sent up a small cloud of red sand that settled slowly in the artificial atmosphere. Teho stood over his fallen opponent, breathing heavily, but still alert. His back was covered in blood from the claw wounds, but he showed no sign of weakness. His eyes immediately searched the arena until they found his daughter, who was staring at him with wide, amazed eyes. The silence stretched on for what felt like forever, as every being in the arena tried to process what they had just witnessed. 3 seconds had been enough to change galactic history. 3 seconds had shown that humans were not the weak prey species everyone believed them to. Medical teams began rushing toward the arena floor, but they moved cautiously, unsure whether the human was still dangerous. Teho knelt down beside his daughter, checking her for injuries while completely ignoring the unconscious alien warrior beside them. The transformation from lethal predator back to concerned parent was as swift and complete as his earlier change to killer. His hands that had just crushed an alien throat were now gently brushing sand from his daughter's hair. Nari threw, her arms around her father's neck, crying with relief and amazement. "Daddy, you saved me," she whispered in human language that the translators could not capture. Teho held his daughter close, feeling the adrenaline finally beginning to fade from his system. The pain from his wounds was starting to register, but it seemed unimportant compared to the fact that his child was safe. Around them, the galaxy would never be the same again. High in the spectator stands, Teho watched his daughter face death with a calmness that surprised him. Something deep inside his mind was changing as he saw the massive alien warrior preparing to kill his child. The fear and helplessness he had felt moments before was being replaced by something much more dangerous. Every protective instinct that millions of years of human evolution had built into his genetic code suddenly woke up all at once. Humans had survived on Earth by being the ultimate persistence predators. They had hunted creatures 10 times their size across vast distances, never giving up, never stopping until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. The same determination that had made his ancestors chase mammoths across frozen plains was now focused on one simple goal: save his daughter. Without any conscious thought or planning, Tae-ho stood up and walked to the safety barrier. The 40-foot drop to the arena floor looked impossible to survive. Most species would have broken, every bone in their body attempting such a fall. But humans had evolved from tree-dwelling primates who could fall great distances and keep moving. The other spectators in his section started shouting warnings, telling him to stop being crazy. Security. Guards were moving toward him, but they were still too far away to intervene. The alien beings around him could not understand what they were seeing. A human parent was about to do something that defied all logic and self-preservation. Tae-ho climbed over the barrier without hesitation. His work boots found purchase on the smooth metal surface for just a moment before he pushed off with both legs. The fall began in complete silence as 40,000 beings watched a human father drop toward the arena floor like a stone. During those few seconds of falling, time seemed to slow down for Tae-ho. His mind became perfectly clear and focused. Every detail of the arena came into sharp view. He could see his daughter's terrified face turned up. Toward him, he could see the alien warrior's claws poised to strike. He could calculate exactly where he needed to land to reach them both. The impact with the arena floor sent shock waves through his legs and spine. But Tae-ho rolled with the landing, just like his ancestors had done when leaping from high rocks while hunting. His shoulder hit the sand first, taking most of the impact. Then his body continued rolling until he came up in a perfect running position. Not a single bone was broken. Crowd erupted in shocked gasps and confused murmuring. No spectator had ever entered the arena during a match in the entire history of the combat festival. Security protocols existed to prevent exactly this kind of incident, but no one had planned. For a human father willing to die for his child, Vexka paused in his attack, more amused than concerned by this development. A single human adult presented no threat to a trained galactic warrior. In fact, this would make the demonstration even better. He could kill both parent and child in front of the entire galaxy, showing once and for all that humans were nothing more than weak prey animals. Nari saw her father land and start running toward her. Relief and terror mixed in her young mind as she called out, "Daddy, save me." She could not understand how he had survived the fall, but she knew her father would protect her just like he always had. Tae-ho ran across the arena sand with steady rhythm. Each step brought him closer to his daughter, and her would-be killer. His work boots pounded against the ground in the same pattern his ancestors had used during persistence hunts. The sound was hypnotic and relentless, like a heartbeat that would never stop. The alien warrior turned to face. This new challenger, still confident in his superiority, Vexka had killed human soldiers before, and they had all died the same way, screaming in pain and begging for mercy. This mechanic would be no different from the warriors he had already defeated, but something was wrong with the way this human was moving. Most humans Vexka had fought showed fear when facing a superior opponent. They would hesitate, stumble, or try to run away. This one showed no fear at all. His eyes were locked on target with the kind of focus that predators used when closing in for a kill. The crowd was leaning forward in their seats, unable to look away from the unfolding drama. Many beings had never seen a human move like this before. The steady running pace looked almost mechanical in its precision. Each step was exactly the same length, taken at exactly the same time. Tae-ho was not thinking about tactics or strategy. His conscious mind had shut down completely, leaving only the ancient hunting instincts that had made humans the most successful predators on Earth. Everything else became background noise as he focused on the single task of reaching his daughter. The distance between father and warrior closed rapidly. 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet. Vexka raised his claws, preparing to cut down both humans in a single sweeping motion. His natural armor shifted into full combat mode, and his muscles tensed for the killing strike. The commander was certain this would be over in seconds. 5 feet 3 feet, 1 foot. The alien warrior had fought thousands of opponents during his military career. He had seen every type of attack strategy and fighting style used by dozens of different species. Nothing had ever surprised him before because he always knew what to expect from inferior beings, but he had never faced a human parent protecting their child. Tejo did not slow down or try to dodge the incoming claws. Instead, he lowered his shoulder and aimed directly for the center of Vexka's chest. His body became a living projectile powered by desperation and millions of years of evolutionary programming. The collision was about to change everything. In the spectator stands, other humans were standing up and shouting encouragement. Their voices joined together in a sound that had not been heard in space before the war cry of protective parents ready to fight impossible odds for their children. The arena fell silent, except for the sound of running footsteps and the scraping of alien claws against armor plating. Two very different evolutionary paths were about to meet in violent collision, one representing the superiority of natural weapons and physical dominance, the other representing the unstoppable determination of a species that had conquered an entire planet through sheer persistence. The impact was only seconds away, and everyone in the arena knew they were about to witness something that would be remembered for generations. The weak human was about to challenge the strong alien warrior in front of the entire galaxy. Most beings expected it to be over quickly, with the human crushed like an insect. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. Medical teams surrounded the fallen alien warrior, while security forces formed a careful circle around Tejo and his daughter. Nobody seemed sure what to do next. The protocols for this situation simply did not exist because nothing like this had ever happened before in galactic history. Dr. Kesra, the head medical examiner, was a being who had treated combat injuries for over 50 years. Her 6 arms moved with practiced efficiency as her team worked to stabilize Vexka. The initial scans showed severe damage to his respiratory system and what appeared to be psychological trauma on a scale she had never encountered. The warrior's throat had been crushed with surgical precision. The human had somehow applied exactly enough force to disable his opponent without causing permanent death. His windpipe could be repaired, but the damage to his warrior pride might never heal. More importantly, the brain scans were showing something unprecedented in her medical experience. Vexka was experiencing genuine terror, even while unconscious. The neural patterns indicated a complete breakdown of his predator instincts. The warrior who had never known fear was now trapped in a nightmare of human hands around his throat. Meanwhile, xenobiologists throughout the arena were frantically accessing their research databases, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Emergency communications were being sent to universities and military academies across known space, requesting immediate analysis of human combat capabilities. Dr. Yeth Nor, a specialist in primitive species biology, was the first to find the data that would change everything. His research team had been studying Earth for several years, but had focused mainly on human technology and social structures. They had largely ignored the biological aspects because humans seemed so physically inferior to most galactic species. But now, as he dug deeper into the evolutionary records, a terrifying picture began to emerge. Humans were not the weak species everyone believed them to be. They were apex predators from what galactic scientists classified as a Class 12 death world. Earth was a planet so hostile that most intelligent species would have gone extinct within a few generations. Yet humans had not merely survived, they had conquered their entire world and eliminated most other large predators. The data showed that humans were persistence. Hunters evolved to chase prey across vast distances until their targets collapsed from exhaustion. Their cardiovascular systems could function at high intensity for hours without stopping. Their bone structure was designed to absorb tremendous impacts, while their muscle fibers could produce explosive bursts of strength when needed. Most importantly, their brain chemistry was programmed to ignore pain, fear, and personal safety when protecting their offspring. The same biochemical processes that allowed human parents to perform impossible rescues during natural disasters were now being witnessed in combat for the first time. Dr. Yeth-Nur immediately sent his findings to the arena officials, and within minutes, the information was spreading through the crowd like wildfire portable devices throughout. The spectator sections began displaying human biological data that painted a very different picture than anyone had expected. Beings who had dismissed humans as weak primitives were now learning that they were looking at a species capable of hunting, creatures 10 times their size. The galaxy had mistaken human restraint and peaceful behavior for weakness, when it was actually evidence of remarkable self-control in the arena. Tae-ho was sitting quietly with his daughter while medical teams treated his claw wounds. The transformation back to gentle parent was complete, but everyone around him now understood that the capacity for lethal violence was still there. Waiting beneath the surface, arena security had initially moved to arrest him. But the officials were unsure what laws had actually been broken. A parent had protected his child from an attacker who was clearly violating exhibition safety protocols. The legal implications would take lawyers years to sort out. Nari was clinging to her father, amazed by what she had witnessed, but not fully understanding the larger significance. Her daddy had always been her hero, but now she had seen him become something beyond her imagination. The other young beings in the exhibition were keeping their distance, treating her with a mixture of respect and fear. The crowd was beginning to understand the political ramifications of what they had witnessed. If a simple human mechanic could disable a galactic champion in 3 seconds, what could trained human soldiers accomplish? What about human parents protecting entire colonies of children? Military representatives from a dozen different species were already sending urgent messages to their governments requesting immediate policy reviews regarding human relations. Several border conflicts that had seemed easily winnable were now being reconsidered in light of this new information. The betting pools throughout the arena had crashed completely. Nobody had wagered on the human father defeating the alien warrior because it had seemed impossible. The economic shockwaves would ripple through gambling systems across multiple star systems, but perhaps most importantly, the social dynamics of the arena had shifted completely. Beings who had come to see demonstrations of natural superiority were now questioning their own assumptions about strength and weakness. The established hierarchy of galactic species was crumbling before their eyes. Vexka regained consciousness briefly, and the first thing he saw was Tae-ho sitting peacefully nearby. The alien warrior immediately began struggling against his medical restraints, panic overwhelming his rational mind. His body was responding to the memory of human hands around, his throat with pure terror. The medical team had to sedate him again, but the brain scans continued showing the same pattern. Complete psychological breakdown of a being who had defined himself through physical dominance, now faced with a species that could out-predator the predators. His entire worldview had collapsed. Dr. Kesra approached Tae-ho cautiously, unsure how to interact with someone who had just redefined her understanding of human biology. The mechanic looked up at her with tired eyes while continuing to hold his daughter. "Are you going to arrest me?" he asked quietly. "I was just protecting my family." The medical examiner realized she was looking at the future of galactic relations. The species everyone had underestimated was about to become the most feared and respected civilization in known space. Not because of their technology or their numbers, but because of their willingness to fight impossible odds for the people they loved. The Arena Medical Bay became a meeting place for representatives from dozens of worlds as the news spread. Everyone wanted to understand what they had witnessed and what it meant for their own species, relations with humanity. Within hours, the incident would be transmitted across the galaxy, changing human status from ignored newcomers to potential allies that everyone wanted to court. The weak prey species had revealed themselves to be the most dangerous predators in known space, and it had all happened because a father loved his daughter enough to jump 40 feet and fight a trained killer with his bare hands. 6 months after the combat festival incident, the galaxy was a very different place. The video recordings of Tai Ho defeating Vexka had been viewed billions of times across every civilized world, turning a simple mechanic into the most famous human in galactic history. But Taeho himself had returned to his quiet life on the human colony world of New Seoul. He still worked in his repair shop, fixing farming equipment and industrial machinery for his neighbors. The only difference was the steady stream of alien visitors who came to see the human who had redefined their species in 3 seconds. Ri was now 8.5 years old and treated like a celebrity. Wherever she went, alien children would whisper and point when they saw her in the marketplace. Their parents would bow respectfully to the child whose father had shown the galaxy what human parents were capable of. The little girl handled the attention with the same quiet dignity her father had shown she would. Wave politely at her admirers, but mostly preferred playing with her human friends who treated her like a normal child. They understood that beneath all the fame and legend, she was still just a girl who loved her daddy. The political changes had been swift and dramatic. The Galactic Council had issued emergency guidelines regarding human participation in all competitive events. More importantly, defense contractors from dozens of star systems had quietly approached human representatives, with lucrative alliance offers. Species that had ignored or dismissed humanity just months before were now eager to sign mutual protection treaties. The beings who had once seen humans as weak prey animals now desperately wanted them as allies rather than potential enemies. General Mordes of the hegemony military had spent weeks studying the arena footage, trying to understand how his most decorated warrior had been defeated so completely. His analysis teams had slowed down the video frame by measuring impact forces and calculating the biomechanics of human combat capability. The results were sobering. A species they had considered militarily insignificant possessed combat abilities that rivaled or exceeded their own elite forces. When motivated by the right circumstances, humans could become nearly unstoppable opponents. The hegemony had quietly withdrawn from 3 border conflicts with human colonies, rather than risk discovering what trained human soldiers might be capable of. Other military powers throughout the galaxy were making similar strategic adjustments. Vexka himself had never returned to active duty. The psychological trauma of being defeated so decisively by what he had considered an inferior being had broken something fundamental in his warrior psyche. He spent his days in a rehabilitation facility where doctors tried to help him process the experience. The former champion would sometimes give interviews to military historians who wanted to understand what had happened in the arena. His account was always the same. The human moved like nothing I had ever encountered before. It was not just strength or speed. It was complete determination focused on a single goal. Nothing existed for him except protecting his child. The interviews always ended the same way, with Vexka warning other warriors never to underestimate human parents defending their offspring. He spoke of 3 seconds that had taught him more about fear than 2 decades of warfare. The arena itself had been renamed Memorial Stadium in honor of the incident, though most beings simply called it 3 seconds. A small plaque was installed where Taeho had landed after his 40-foot jump. The inscription was written in over 200 galactic languages. Here the galaxy learned that love makes warriors of us all. Tourist ships brought visitors from across known space to see the spot where human capabilities had been revealed. The arena gift shop sold replica human work boots and translation devices programmed with famous quotes from the incident, but perhaps the most significant changes were happening in the universities and research centers, where xenobiologists were completely rewriting their understanding of human evolution. The peaceful farmers and merchants that most species had encountered were revealed to be the descendants of apex predators. Dr. Yethnor had published a landmark paper titled The Persistence Predator Paradigm that became required reading in every Galactic military academy. His research showed that humans had evolved not just to hunt other creatures, but to out-predator the predators themselves. The paper included detailed analysis of human endurance capabilities, pain, tolerance, and the biochemical changes that occurred when they were protecting family members. The data painted a picture of a species that was far more dangerous than anyone had realized. Military training programs across the galaxy began incorporating lessons about human combat. Psychology soldiers were taught to recognize the signs of protective parental behavior and to avoid triggering the kind of response that had destroyed Vexca children throughout human space, grew up hearing the story of the mechanic who moved like lightning to save his daughter. Parents everywhere understood that sometimes the greatest strength came not from training or technology, but from the unbreakable bond between those who love and those they protect. The story had become a modern legend that crossed species barriers. Every intelligent civilization had some form of family structure, and most could understand the motivation that had driven Tejo to risk everything for his child. Nari often asked her father about that day, and he would always give her the same answer: I did what any parent would do. I protected my family. Nothing else mattered in that moment. As she grew older, Nari began to understand the larger significance of what had happened. Her father's actions had changed humanity's status in the galaxy forever. They were no longer seen as weak newcomers begging for acceptance, but as equals demanding respect. The galaxy had learned an important lesson that day about the difference between peaceful behavior and actual weakness. Humans might prefer diplomacy and cooperation, but they possessed the capacity for devastating violence when their loved ones were threatened. It was a mistake that other species would be very careful never to repeat. Years later, when Nari had children of her own, she would tell them the story of their grandfather who jumped 40 feet and fought a monster to keep his little girl safe. The legend would pass down through generations, becoming part of human cultural identity, and throughout the galaxy, whenever someone spoke of humans, they would remember the 3 seconds that changed everything. The 3 seconds when a simple father showed that love really could conquer all.